In early 2026, the world witnessed one of the most dangerous moments in modern geopolitics. Within just 12 hours, the United States and Israel launched hundreds of strikes across Iran, targeting military bases, missile systems, and nuclear infrastructure. It was a massive military operation designed to cripple Iran's strategic capabilities in a single blow. But Iran didn't answer with a wave of missiles. Instead, it made one move that shook the entire global economy. It closed the Strait of Hormuz, a narrow stretch of water, only 21 miles wide, and suddenly, the world realized how fragile modern civilization really is. Because through this tiny corridor flows nearly 20 million barrels of oil every day. That is around 1/5 of all global oil consumption. Saudi Arabia's oil passes through it. Iraq's exports depend on it. Qatar's liquefied natural gas travels through it before reaching Europe and Asia. There are alternative pipelines, but they can only handle a small fraction of the normal flow. For decades, the world never seriously prepared for this scenario, because the strait remained open. Until now. Within days of the closure, global oil prices exploded past $126 per barrel. Iraq struggled to store its crude oil because exports had stalled. Qatar declared force majeure, essentially telling customers that existing contracts could no longer be guaranteed due to the crisis. Countries far from the Middle East immediately felt the consequences. Pakistan began shutting schools to conserve electricity. Factories across Asia faced energy uncertainty. European markets panicked over gas supplies. And it wasn't just oil. A huge portion of the world's fertilizer trade moves through the same waterway. When fertilizer prices rise, food prices rise too. Farmers in countries thousands of miles away suddenly face higher costs. Families who have never even heard of the Strait of Hormuz end up paying more for basic goods. The waterway also carries helium, industrial metals, petrochemicals, and materials used in manufacturing products around the globe. This wasn't simply an oil crisis, it was a global supply chain crisis. And the most shocking part, Iran never needed to defeat a superpower militarily. It only needed to threaten the world's most important shipping lane. The Strait of Hormuz sits between Iran and Oman. Geographically, it acts like a bottleneck for the Persian Gulf. Everything inside the Gulf must pass through this one exit to reach the open ocean. For centuries, powerful empires understood the importance of controlling this route. Back in the 1500s, Portuguese forces realized they didn't need to conquer entire nations to dominate trade. They only needed control over strategic chokepoints. Control the door, and you control the flow of wealth. Later, other powers fought over the same region for the exact same reason. But in modern times, Iran gained a unique advantage. It controls islands and positions inside the strait itself. That means Iran doesn't just watch the shipping lane. It sits directly inside it. For decades, military planners around the world knew this vulnerability existed. The United States even stationed its Fifth Fleet nearby in Bahrain, specifically to secure the region. Aircraft carriers, destroyers, submarines, advanced surveillance systems, one of the most powerful naval forces on Earth. Yet even that wasn't enough, because the Strait of Hormuz is not a traditional battlefield. It's a confined, chaotic environment where small threats become massive problems. Fast attack boats can appear suddenly among civilian traffic. Cheap naval mines can be scattered quickly and are extremely difficult to detect. Even worse, the damage doesn't need to be large. Just the fear of danger is enough. Because modern shipping depends on insurance. The moment conflict escalates, insurance companies begin raising premiums. If a tanker is attacked or even threatened, insurers may refuse coverage entirely. And without insurance, commercial ships stop moving. Captains won't risk billion-dollar cargo through an active war zone without protection. That means even if the US Navy physically secures the route, global shipping companies may still refuse to enter. This is where Iran's strategy becomes powerful. The goal is not necessarily to completely block the strait. The goal is to create enough uncertainty that global trade freezes on its own. A few naval mines, A single damaged tanker, even rumors can trigger panic in financial markets. And once the tankers stop moving, pressure spreads across the entire world economy. Countries that had nothing to do with the conflict suddenly become desperate for stability. Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, India, all heavily dependent on Gulf energy supplies. Strategic oil reserves can help temporarily, but only for a short time. Days, maybe weeks, not forever. And that creates a dangerous situation where even nations outside the conflict begin demanding a resolution. Eventually, the strait usually reopens, because Iran also depends on oil exports flowing through the same route. Keeping it closed for too long damages its own economy. But every time the crisis ends, the world falls back into the same pattern. Leaders discuss alternative pipelines. Experts warn about supply vulnerabilities. Governments talk about reducing dependence. Then the panic fades. And nothing fundamentally changes. Because building backup infrastructure costs enormous amounts of money. And politicians rarely invest billions preparing for a disaster that might not happen for another decade. So the world continues relying on the same narrow corridor. A 21-mile wide passage that remains one of the most important and dangerous chokepoints on Earth. For more than 500 years, nations have fought over this doorway between the Gulf and the open ocean. Empires changed, technology evolved, weapons became more advanced. But the geography never changed. And in the end, geography may still control the modern world more than armies, politics, or technology ever could.